Hello again, I'm Larry Hamilton. Welcome to my YouTube painting channel. Thank you for watching. Today I'm going to do a watercolor painting, and it's not really for a class, it's really just because I thought it was time to do another watercolor for you. So we're doing one that I've actually done this painting once before, and I had given it away for a Christmas gift, so I thought I would do another original for myself. So it won't look exactly like the previous one, but I'm going to make it close, and hope you like it. It's a scene of woods, snow scene with woods and a little lake in there, and it's similar to something I see out the back of my house every day, except we don't have a lake. So I decided to use my artistic license and add a lake. So I hope you like it, and without too much further ado, let's get going. I want to zoom in. I'll show you the sketch. I'll also overlay for you the photograph that I'm working from, and sketch is a little bit light. I actually did the sketch with a pencil, sort of a charcoal pencil it's called. It's from General Pencil. They're called pastel chalk, and I have a little violet color here. It does blur a little bit when they get water on it, so I have to be careful with that, but it will also mix with the paint fairly well, and I don't think that'll be a problem. The brushes we're using today are the Sterling Edwards set. I'm using a Sterling Edwards palette here. A Sterling Edwards set of brushes. I have a bristle brush. These are blending brushes, he calls them. We have like a medium and a small. I may not use those today, but they're in the set. I have a 1-inch flat. I have a 1/2-inch flat. I have a number 12 round, a number 8 round, and a number 4 round. And I have added a small rigger brush from American Painter that I'll use. I may not use all of those brushes, but I'll have them available. The paints we're using today, quickly I'll go around the palette. These paints are from My Mary Blue. They're a beautiful Italian watercolor paint, transparent watercolor. And the colors are neutral tint, cyan blue, ultramarine blue, ultraviolet, crimson lake, garnet lake, cadmium red, burnt sienna, raw sienna, and yellow ochre. On the outside edge I have a cupric green, similar to viridian green, golden lake. I have a couple yellows here, a lemon yellow and a primary yellow. Inside row I have burnt umber, sap green, Avignon orange, primary red magenta, and still to grain brown. And I added a color here that I've picked up from some colors I had in my other stack of paints. It's called light red. I don't know if I'll use it much. It's a Grumbacher paint, but it sometimes gets some nice reds that you can't quite get with burnt sienna. So other than that, I think we're ready to go. And so without any more talking, let me get these brushes cleaned out. We'll get started here. And I'm going to put a little water. Oh, I should tell you also, the paper we're painting on today is a Fabriano Artistico paper, and it's 11 by 14 inches, and that would be 28 by 35 centimeters. It's 300 pounds paper, and that would be 640 grams per square meter if you're in the metric system. Okay, so that's pretty much all I wanted to tell you there, and let's get going with this thing. Excuse me, my voice is having a little hiccup today. I'll get my water going, get me some paper towel in case I get water running. I'm painting vertically, as you know. I don't paint flat as most watercolorists do, simply because it's easier to video this way. So I'm going to just start getting some water out here in my palette, and I want to start just clear water really at the top and start putting in some clear water across the top here. We're going to have a soft sky, and it's a winter scene, so it's going to be probably cooler than it is warm. However, I'm going to have some browns in here in the trees, and we'll warm it up a little bit with those browns. Okay, you see how the pencil is running a little bit. I probably could have taken my paper towel and kind of blotted some of that off to get some of the excess pastel crayon off of there. But it'll blend in with the paint when I start painting. Okay, in the sky we're going to pick up a little alizarin, not alizarin crimson, but crimson lake. Put a little ultraviolet in it. And just with this paper wet, I'm just going to start putting in just a little bit of color back here, not much. Just let it sort of run. Over here, maybe it's a little redder, maybe. Let's do this. There we go. Okay, so it gets a nice sort of a pastel sky, but I have enough of this ultra in there to make it cooler. And at the bottom, I don't want this to have hard edges. I want it to sort of blend together, so I'm going to take some clear water and just sort of soften this lower edge here so that it just sort of fades into the paper without leaving a hard edge. Sometimes you have to be careful with that when you paint vertically like this, because the paint will settle down. You can see it here a little bit, and it will leave hard edges. So if you don't have your paper wet enough, or you don't check it while you're doing this, you may have some hard edges that you don't want in that paper. See, I'm going to take just a little more of my ultra blue and just hit a couple more spots over here to darken this corner just a little. Don't want the two corners to look the same or have the same value. I want to have change of value across here. Okay, that, my friends, is the sky. See a spot here that's got some hard edge in it. I'll just sort of lighten it up. Clear water. One thing about skies, if you keep going back in there, you'll eventually mess them up. So get in, do your thing, make it light, make it the color you want, and then get out and leave it alone. The more you mess, the more you'll have a chance for a background. So I'm going to get my hairdryer out and dry this thing now, so I'll flip my microphone off for a few seconds while I dry this. Okay, I think I've got it fairly dry. Use the back of your hand to test it. If it feels warm to the touch, it's still wet. Usually cool to the touch, it's still wet. If it feels about the temperature of your hand, it's probably dry. I feel a little bit of wetness over here. Rather than use the tips of your fingers where you have a lot more oils, use the back of your hand. You have a lot less oil, so you won't be putting oil on the paper. Okay. Let's continue. I'm going to make some background trees here. And, they could be mountains, they could be trees, I don't know what they are. They're just in the distance, and I'm going to make them have a bit of a violet, lavender, blue color. Part of painting perspective in landscapes is to give yourself some aerial perspective, it's called, so that trees and things in the distance sort of take on this bluish or purplish color. So just throw in some of this kind of stuff here. Change the color, don't leave it the same color too long. Pick up some of this. Actually, by putting a little bit of burnt sienna in with this blue, you start getting a gray. And so I can kind of gray this down a little bit to give it a little bit different flavor. Maybe I'll get a gray here. A little bit too much in there, but let's try that. Pull it down here. So I don't want this, I don't want to have duplicates. I don't want to have clones of humps. That's boring. You want to make sure there's some differences in the colors and the texture. Paint around this branch of the tree a little bit right there. Maybe come in over here and do the same thing. Okay, start picking up some, maybe a little more blue on this side and a little more brown to it. Behind these trees, I'm actually painting, leaving room for this tree branches in here. And just using this big 1-inch brush. I don't know if I told you I was using a 1-inch brush, but that's what I'm using here for this. Just lay it on its side and kind of push it and pull it, twist it and turn it. Leave some holes. We're going to put another layer over this, so don't worry too much about it. Over here I'm going to put just a few more marks in here. Every time you can put a layer in that's a little bit darker, it adds depth to the painting. So just punch in some things like that. I'm getting a little bit of a run here. I got to be careful. Okay. Starting to get a decent background. I think these trees here, I need to have a little bit more behind them back here. It looks like it's too cut off. So I'll just add some light paint here, make this continue up, paint around these branches right there. Okay. Something like that. I'm leaving areas down here that might be snow or might be some other bushes. There's a lake right in this area. I got some nice trees in front of it. Some bushes coming in from the sides, and fairly straightforward, nothing very exotic or complicated. Touch this off up here a little bit maybe. Just put a few more marks in there. Okay. So that's the next layer. And it's wet before I start putting something over it. I would like for it to be dry, so I'm going to do a quick dry here again. I'll turn the microphone off. Okay, I'm back. Let's see now. Start another layer here of trees in front of those trees. And I'm going to get a little green in it maybe, so I'm going to pick up maybe some of this primary yellow over here and start mixing it in with this blue that I have on the palette. The blue and yellow make green, but I can make several shades of green by adding either my violet with one of my 2 shades of yellow. I can get an olive color by mixing neutral tint and yellow ochre. So I can change the colors of green here very easily by having these mixtures of green and blue and lavender and yellow. Right now I got only one, couple shades of yellow in there. I have a little bit of ochre up here and a little bit of primary yellow there. Maybe I'll stick a little bit of limon yellow. It's a greener yellow. And see what I get with it. So now you can see in the palette here I have a mixture of greens, grays, some olive, and those are some of the colors I want to use for these trees. So let's start back in the distance and pick up a little of this greenish purple color here. And we'll start right in here with another layer of trees. Maybe a little darker maybe. Pick up a little more of the purple. Purple or violet, I don't know, I kind of use that term interchangeably. It could be either color. Down here, we'll just slide in a few things like that. Pick up a few more darks, a little bit of this neutral tint and blue. We'll darken it down. Okay, something like this. A little darker, maybe add a little more brown to pick up some of this gray color. Gray it down a little bit. I'm going to do a little negative painting. You've heard me talk about that before probably. Negative painting is where you paint around something and leave like a tree trunk there that really wasn't there until you put the dark around it. So I can just sort of mix these up, and I'll come back and touch another color on top of that to finish out those trunks, and you'll see trees. I'll pick up maybe a little of this. I'm seeing a little of this red type color. Color of this has an orangish. Many times you see trees out in this part of the country or in different parts of the country where they have pine trees that are dying, and they sort of pick up this brown look. Light red's very good for that. It also grays down any greens that you may have in there. So we'll just sort of paint our little forest across here. Pick up a few trees, maybe stick some of them up in the distance back here, like that. Another one or two maybe. Just touching in little corners, using the corner of the brush, slaying in little impressionistic marks that make it look like trees back there. Not trying to paint every leaf and branch and needle on a tree. I'm trying to make an impression of trees that tell you what's going on back there. Okay. About some more over here on the right side. For this area. A little bit different color. Don't want it to be the same. Just little impressions of trees. The corner of this brush makes trees. And this over on the left side is starting to dry out a little bit now, so I can maybe come back in and pop in a few more things in here on the left side. Actually, once it dries, I can put another layer on top of it. So just throw in some different sized trees. These little things that stick up like this just tell the viewer it's a forest of trees back there. All right. Still using a 1-inch brush, the only brush I've used so far. So I'm going to go down and pick up some of this water here that's kind of hanging loose, ready to run down my page. Pick it up with a dry brush. You dry your brush out with paper towel and just suck it up. Picks it right up off the paper. Okay. That's looking pretty good. How's this? This is probably still wet. Let's see if I can do anything here. Leave some of those nice marks in there. Across here we've got some darker areas that sort of start looking like the bank of the back of the lake here. So I'm just adding some neutral tint along with some lavender, ultraviolet I should say. Some brown in there. Those could be rocks, that could be snow, since this is a snow scene. We're going to have some areas that have snow coming down and merging, coming down this way. And by the brush stroke alone, I can tell you that that land is sloping this way. All I had to do was make the mark this way. If I make the mark horizontal, it tells you it's flat. If I make the mark this way, it tells you it's sloping. Very important to understand your brush strokes and what they tell the viewer when the viewer looks at them. All right, what else? I have a big blossom here. I don't know if you can see that well, but it's because I went back and put more water on top of what was there. Sometimes those work for you and sometimes they work against you. And you never know till you actually see it start to dry whether it's going to work or not. So let's put in a couple more here. I think that's starting to dry off a little. I want to put in some tall trees here. Okay, just little things. I may put some trees even in front of that in a minute, but right now I'm going to just sort of leave it at that. I can paint around some other trees and branches. Don't want to make it too interesting back there. That's not the focal point. The focal point is going to be sort of in this lake area here in this trees. So I don't want to make it so interesting that the eye keeps going back there and looking at something specifically. That's part of making sure you have somewhat of a focal point in your painting, or at least you move the eye around a little bit. All right. Okay. I think maybe, well, I'm going to get this little rigger out, and I'm going to throw in some trees there, some more, pick me up a little more of this, picking up actually a little still to grain brown and mixing that with this blue that I have, and get a different color gray, a little darker gray. See what that looks like in this area here. Something like that. Gives me a very interesting set of marks. Wiggle it a little bit, put in some branches. So I've got different widths of trees here, some that are wider and some that are narrower. But I want to take some of them right off the top of the paper. Excuse me. Widen this out just a little. Okay. Here in the middle, we're going to have a few more, maybe right in here. Take one right up the top. If you get enough paint on your brush, you can just sort of lay it down and pull something out of it like that. All right, step back, look at it, see if it's getting the kind of effects I'm looking for. Okay, a few more of these on the right side. Don't want to overload it, but I want to make sure that we have enough things to look like we have a real forest back here. Okay, here I was going to add a little bit of a tree trunk to this one. So I have a little bit of white here that I left over where I painted negatively, and then adding to the top, I just put in a little more of a, it's the, makes it look like there's nice trees there. There, something like this. All right, probably put a few more branches in there, but that's pretty much what I want to do for the sort of the background, I guess. Make sure that it's got nice difference in height, difference in trees. The widths of the trees are, some are narrower, some are wider. Okay. Now, next we're going to work on this lake. I think I'm going to clean out my palette while I can here. Take a second and just wipe all this gunk out of here. It does get dirty easily. At least the way I paint, I tend to mix a lot of colors on the palette and go back and constantly adjust and revise and gray things down, brighten them up. All right. Now, in this water area, a good way to paint water is to wet it first and then come back over it and to make it look like it's a lake, I want to make vertical brush strokes in it. So I'm going to put some clear water here, leave about 1/8 of an inch below the bank over there, and just pull down some clear water here. Still painting around these trees that are going to be in the foreground, middle ground. And I think I cut the lake off there, but I let the lake go back here just a little bit. Actually, I didn't. I'm going to make the lake go back here. Okay, so as I get that paper wet, now when I start putting color in there, start picking up some of my neutral tint, some of these colors that are in the background and in the sky. I'm going to pick a few sky colors up, pick some of that lavender up, a little bit of that crimson color. And I want to just start right here, start pulling down. And as you can see, those colors will those vertical strokes tell you what's going on there. Pick up a little bit of this greenish color here. If I can get some green out of it, make some areas here. Water, you may have heard me say before, really has no color. Water only reflects what's above it, underneath it, or around it. That's why sometimes in winter scenes and snow and winter scenes, when you see water, the water is almost black. So I'm making it dark here in some areas, still pulling down. As that dries, I'll try to pull down a few more strokes and sort of let it blend here to the bottom. All right. Does that say water or frozen water? Maybe it's not frozen. I could make it frozen by putting more gray in it in some areas. Over here. It might look a little more frozen, I don't know. Certainly, by putting these other colors in, you start enforcing the reflectivity. This is another area like the sky. You can mess around in there and goof it up. The more you play with it, the more you have a chance of messing it up. So just to enhance that reflection a little more, I'm going to throw in a few vertical strokes that kind of tell you maybe too early to do that. Probably is. Something that shows you that we've got some reflection of those trees up there. Okay, I got some water building up right here. I'm going to put a bush there. It's going to cover that up. This area here, I'll pick up this water. Okay. Okay. How are we doing on time? 35 minutes. Okay. I want to get some more colors on this snow, or more definition of the snow, I should say. Actually, I think changing my plan here a little bit on the fly. No, I'm going to leave it that way. I'm going to make sure this sort of has a nice rough texture. Some areas. Just let this snow sort of come down this way. There's some over here. We've got some nice this is a snow bank. I'm going to soften the bottom edge of that so that it sort of blends in and helps you think that it's curving to the surface. Soften it with clear water, dry your brush out, and just go back over it very lightly. Same thing over here. Soften this front edge. Leave the back edge a little hard, and it helps define another layer there in front of that lake. Okay, on this left side, make it all sort of in some shadows here. We do have the sun. I'm going to make it lighter on the right side, so I'm going to the left side of these trees are going to be a little darker. So I can represent some shadows here on the snow from trees and that sort of thing. Okay. Now, I think I'll start working on these trees now. So I've used nothing but my 1-inch flat and my rigger so far. I think I'm going to get out my 1/2-inch flat and start working on these trees. This still to grain brown is a beautiful color, beautiful brown color. So I want to have it, and I want to have some mixture with some blue to get me some grayish color. And I'll start with that. So I'm going to start here on the left with this still to grain and start down here. Start working my way up. One thing I could have done, which I didn't do, is put a little water on that tree. I put some water on the right side, clear water, using a round brush just to put some water on here. Put some water down the right side of that tree. That will let me have some way to sort of blend this paint as I move it up the tree. A little more black in here. More brown. Something like this gives us a nice dark edge on this side of the tree. And as we pull it over, it gets lighter because we got water over there on the right side. So we'll make these branches go up like this. A little more water maybe up here on this side of this big part of the trunk. And just move our way up this tree here. Take it right off the top of the page. Try to keep it darker on the left as much as possible. Lighter on the right. And a few more branches in here. Sort of cross over. Up here we got a few that are going to be more gray maybe. This whole top might be a little grayer for that matter. Try not to make them the same angle. If you can remember. And just touch in some dark spots again as this sort of dries down here. We can come back and redefine that edge of that tree so it stands out from what's behind it. If it's not darker than what's behind it, you won't see it. Doesn't have to be too dark down here. All right, I think that'll give us enough to define that tree. And I can come back now and put some more branches and so forth in there. Parts broken off there from this tree. All right, now, so that tree, while I'm working on it, maybe I'll just get my rigger brush here and come back and pick up some of these colors I have in the palette, these grays and browns, and come back and sort of finish off some of these other branches maybe, like this. Make sure it's thick enough so it looks like it belongs to this tree and not the one behind it there. All right, darks, blacks, still to grain brown. Okay, just something kind of like that. All right. A little bit of water building up there on my, pick it up, dry brush. All right, let's look at the other tree on the other side. It's going to be a little different color. I'm going to make it a probably gray, mostly gray. Over here, same, remember, the same idea to what the side that's going to be lighter. It's going to be in the sun, or whatever sun you have. Whatever lightness you have is going to be on this right side here, like that. Right side of that branch. So that'll give us something to blend into as we move up the tree trunk. Mostly neutral tint here. Change the color a little bit, add a little brown in there. And some spots, maybe some, come back and pick up some of this violet. Again, this has to be darker than those trees behind it, or you won't see it. All with a flat brush. No round brush here. So the base of that, I want to have it to be hard edge in some areas and soft edges in some others. I want to have snow up against it. This one over here, I didn't fill in the little gap over here. I'll put a little more in there. Okay, come back and see if I can make this stand out a little more right in here. Okay, how are we doing here? Tree looks like it's got a chunk eaten out of it there because it's so light on that right side, so it blends with the background. So let's just put a little, pull down just a little water in there. It'll sort of change its value a little bit. Okay, this has a little stump sticking out here on this side. All right. I think now maybe I'm going to pick up my rigger again, come back into these colors, pick up a little more violet. See if I can stick in a few more. Just fill it out here. Okay. A lot of branches, little dry brush work. You can just sort of flick in all kind of stuff here to make it look like a lot of tree branches. I'm not trying to actually connect them to anything. I'm just sort of making it look like there's a lot of branches out there. Same thing on this other tree. I could go back and fill in some more here. Make them cross over. These really fine branches when all the leaves are gone. Something like that. Okay. I want to have some kind of a bright red bush like right in here. I think that might still be a little too wet. Maybe not. See, it's not quite as bright as I want it. It's more light red. Got a little crimson to it. Put a little bright red top on this thing here. That, come back and pick up some darker colors for the bottom. Something like this. A few more bushes over here of the same type. Put a few more red tops on them if I can pick up some red. I'm helping to define the edge of that tree, you see? Because it's the same color, it looks like it's all connected. So it's basically another way to negative paint around something. Like that. change the color, bring in some other all right. Leave that edge sort of hard down here, but maybe make a little bit of it soft in some areas so we don't have everything hard edge. All right. See here. Here we've got a few little bushes and things that are sticking up. They're sort of grayish, brownish gray. I'm just taking this flat brush and just flicking up. Flick up like this. Okay. Here we'll have a few more darks, kind of connect them together in some areas. Make some more shadow over here for this guy. He's got some shadow that's sort of hitting on the snow as well. If we make it go up a little bit, it'll make the viewer realize this is a slope on the left side. A few more things here. Let's put some, maybe pick up some ochre or some of this reddish brown burnt sienna in here. A couple of colors. Make it sort of hide the base of this a little bit. Okay. Okay, a few more colors on the right side. I want to pull some of this color over here, like right in here maybe. Not quite the same color. Get some more ochre in it, a little more. Very impressionistic. This is not. Take the brush and pull it very fast. You leave a rough edge on the bottom. And let's mix in some darker values at the bottom of that to sort of tie it in. Got some more trees over here on the right that's leaving shadows here. You can't see them, but I know they're there because I decided they were there. Okay, some of this we're going to put in a little more. Like that. Take a little more of this and sort of soften some of these edges in some spots. So we have, I don't have any white paint to paint with, but I'm making it look like snow. It's one of the fun secrets of watercolor, how by just leaving white paper you can make these things all look like there's a lot of snow out there. Putting in some more things here. Looks like I'm running it, doesn't it? Pick up some ochre and that. can also scrape in some things that look like it's probably too dry. Yep, it is. But over here you can sort of scrape in some, while that's at the right wetness, you can sort of scrape in some back of these brushes. A lot of them have a V-type angular end on them, and you can scrape with them. Helps add some texture. Okay. Make some soft here. Mixture of soft and hard are always pleasing. And down here we might even have some rocks that were sticking up. I don't know. I don't think I had rocks in the original painting, but you can also, by scraping into these areas to make it look like there's rocks, some of these areas, you can either use the back of this, use it sideways and sort of scrape in like this. You sort of get some interesting textures. And if it's too much, you can always go back and just sort of blot it out. Let's see, just about done with this thing, I think. Step back, take a look. Does it look reasonably finished? I think I've got a little more on that right side. Has a little more yellow than I wanted. So let's gray it down just a little here with some darker bushes in here like this. All flat brush work here, folks. No round brushes. Only flats. A 1-inch, half-inch flat, and a rigger. Put some bushes around this guy here. Here's the side of the brush. Soften this edge. Looks like it's sitting down in there. Okay, so I have a little pattern of, you can sort of walk into the painting a little bit with. Follow yourself, get to the focal point, hopefully. See some nice whites, good distribution. All right, I could probably spend some more time on this, and I may touch it up just slightly before I post the final photograph on YouTube, but for now I think I'm going to stop and say thank you for watching again. I hope you like this painting. Hope you give it a try. Send me some comments. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, and I'll see if I can answer them all. So until I see you again, this is Larry Hamilton saying so long for now. Bye.